So my first question was, what do you think makes you special versus other directors?
I think one thing that makes me special is that I was always a writer first, and I approach filmmaking from the perspective of a writer. So it's a tremendous advantage to be a writer as a director because, again, I always say directing is an extension of writing. So if I'm writing a script and I know I'm directing it, I can approach it much differently than if I'm writing a script and it's what we call the spec script that I hope to sell to someone else that they're going to cast and do whatever they want to do with it. But when I know that I'm in both of those roles, I can think about things in a different way. So as a writer, I'm already envisioning shots. So when I'm writing a script, I'm writing it as the director. So then when I'm the director, I'm also reflecting back as a writer, and that just gives me an advantage in that way.
When you're writing a script, how long do you think, how long did it take you to write your recent script about the Racine movie you're filming?
Okay, so my process is always I walk around for months without ever writing anything down, and I feel like I'm actually writing the movie in my head. I have the beginning, the middle, the end. I'll pretty much have the story. As soon as I know that I'm doing a movie, I'll be driving in the car. I'll be in all my free moments. Things are coming to be like, oh, that's going to be good. I'm going to do this. It's going to, in the end, this is going to happen. And I'm putting the things together. So then when I sit down to actually write it and sit down at the computer, maybe about 2 months. This might have taken me about 2 months, that part, but I had been thinking about it and doing it. That's what rewrites and things like that. But I had probably been since December, January, kind of writing it in my head pretty much.
Like, do these scripts go through people after you're done writing, to correct it or anything like that, or is all you when it comes to scripts?
It depends on the process. So for the project, rather, it depends on the project. For the movie Coming to Africa and Coming to Africa, Welcome to Ghana that I shot in Ghana, there's my producer and my assistant director there who are from Ghana, natives. There were a lot of things I had to make sure that are correct, culturally correct. You don't want to offend anyone, especially it's a comedy. You want things to be right. So on a project like that, I definitely have them. Like as I write it, I'll send it to you all. Let me know, if this is kind of right. Okay, would they say this in Ghana? How would they do this? Help me punch this up and make sure it's something that's appropriate. If it's not that type of project, not necessarily. If I have someone around me I kind of trust, I'll bounce things off of. I bounce things off of my wife, definitely. So she'll be that person to an extent. So as far as just reading the entire script start to finish, not necessarily, but I will run certain things by certain people that I trust.
And then one final thing, what is your newest movie about? Like the one you're filming in Racine?
So it's about during a violent weekend in Racine. It's about a father trying to save his son from getting caught up in everything that's going on around him. So something unfortunate happens to his son's best friend, and he just knows kind of his son. He doesn't want him to react a certain way. So he's basically trying to catch up to him to calm him down. But underneath that, it's about the connections we have in Racine. A lot of people in Racine families go back generations, 2 or 3 generations. Grandparents knew each other, and there are all these connections that sometimes make it an awkward situation when things like that do happen, and when these beefs and different things in the streets kind of go on, and it's like, well, this person and this person are into it with each other, but his grandmother and his grandmother used to go to church together, and is all of these different connections. So a lot of it is about that, but on the surface, it's just about this father really trying to protect his son and stop him before he makes a mistake that can cost him his life.
So you say you growing up in Racine and the influence of Racine really helped you make this movie?
Oh, absolutely. No one else could have made a movie like this, and I'm really excited to see a real racing movie on screen because we really do have our own culture here. It's heavily influenced by Chicago or by other places, but Racine is a unique place. I mean, from the food to the people. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. This is the first project I really get to pour that into the project. So my first project I had, the characters were from Racine, and I particularly wrote it that way because me and my brother were playing the roles. And we were in the South, so I knew no one would believe we were from Memphis. So I made the characters from Racine. But this is the first time I get to tell a truly Racine story where all the characters are from Racine and how that looks. I'm really excited to see.
My first question is, how do you come up with the stories that you produce? And kind of an extension of that, how do you come up with the story that you're doing for racing?
Okay, so the majority, if not all of the stories I'm written, they all start with something that really happened in real life, but then I'll fictionalize it. So it's like, this really happened. Wow, that would be funny if this would have happened. So I'll give you an example. The first film I wrote, Funeral Arrangements, that I started when I was in a screenwriting class in college. I had a job that summer at a place called Generac. We were making these generators. They had a really strict attendance policy, like 1.5 occurrences. Like an if you absence was an occurrence, and if you're late, there's a half. And if you got like two, they were firing you. They're really firing people. And I think I had an occurrence already, but I really wanted to go to like a concert or it was something in real life. So I told the supervisor I had a funeral. I have to for the funeral. I'm thinking they have to respect the funeral. And he said, okay, well, when you come back from the funeral, bring me a copy of the obituary, the program from the funeral. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, God. So in real life, I didn't bring it to him and I didn't get fired. He just kind of let it go. But the writer in me said, that would be hilarious if a guy told that lie and then went to a stranger's funeral just to try to get the obituary to take the work. And then it just went from there. So in the movie, that happens. Guys go to a stranger's funeral, they get mistaken for someone else by these dangerous guys, and it turns into this whole adventure. So nearly everything I write, it starts like that. It'll be one either funny thing or dramatic thing that happened, and I'm like, well, if this happened, it would be, oh, what if that happened? What if that happened? I'll just go from there. So for Across State Street, which is the film I'm shooting in Racine, um, is really just inspired by a lot of tragic situations and um, people I knew growing up who were killed just in Racine. And in the city this small is sometimes I struggle to tell people or explain to people in much bigger cities like living in Memphis or places with a much higher crime rate or a lot more. But I'm like, in a small city when these things were happening, it was just felt differently because so many of us knew each other and um again just having those connections, people's families being connected, and a lot of times you would know both sides of the situation. It was just um I just really felt like hopefully if I could make a movie about it and show the positive side, like, okay, what would happen if people could come together now and discuss these things because you're just you know a degree or two separated. Everyone really knows someone who knows someone. So it was really inspired by that, just thinking about the cycle of violence and these things that go on. I mean, and even here in the John Bryant Center where we are, if anyone ever comes in here and pays attention to that wall out there and the obituaries they have over there, all those people, who passed. And there's like 40 something names on that wall out there. And I can go out there right now and say, I knew like 30 something of them. Uh, so I just really wanted to capture that and try to put a spin on it where hopefully life can imitate art. It can start a different conversation about it.
What do you think is the most important part when you're writing your narratives?
I think the most important part when writing a narrative is to keep the action going. Um, keep it each scene. You want to get to the point where each scene starts to have its own arc and becomes its mini story in and of itself. So sometimes, even myself, anyone who writes, I think you can write a lot of stuff to get it on the paper and maybe want to get it there. And then you go back to certain scenes like, is that really necessary? What is this scene really accomplishing? Is it pushing it forward at all? So I think the most important thing is to make sure that the characters and the narrative are constantly the characters in the scenes are constantly pushing a narrative along, and that you create characters that the audience can care about in one way or another. They can love them, they can hate them, at least be invested in what's going on with them. So I've written things in the past that I look back like, oh, okay, yeah, the characters were not really clear. The audience didn't really know if they were good, bad, if they should like them, hate them, or not enough to care about them. So I would say compelling characters that the audience cares something about and constantly moving it along. So it's not just static. It feels like people are just sitting down having conversation after conversation.
Do you have a favorite story that has those elements specifically?
Um, a story period or a movie or a movie,
Novel.
a novel. There's an old novel called The Outsider by author called Richard Wright. Richard Wright was my favorite author growing up. And it's this novel called The Outsider, and it's just nonstop. I mean, there's a lot going on, but I'll say that. But if I start trying to explain the whole story, we'd be here all day. But yeah, I'll say the Outsider by Richard Wright.
Did you have any goals with writing and or film, and if so, did you achieve them?
Well, when I started with film, I've been fortunate to achieve them. At first, I think a lot of us just want to make a feature film and have it released available to the public and know that someone appreciates it. So it was never my goal to fly off necessarily and be a Hollywood filmmaker. I always said if I make good movies and they get the reaction Hollywood, someone else takes notice, I'm in the right rooms, they'll grab me, right? But my goals were mainly just to be able to um, feature length films, to be able to see them on the big screen, and to if it's a comedy, which a lot of things I write are comedies, hear that laughter, be in a room and hear that laughter and get that appreciation. And yes, I've been fortunate to achieve that several times over now.
What would you say is your favorite movie or your top 3 favorite movies?
Okay, that's better because yeah, it's always hard for one. Uh, one one of my favorites is Goodfellas, by Martin Scorsese. Um, Another one is a really old movie called Which Way Is Up by the great comedian Richard Pryor. Stars in that movie. I'll say Which Way Is Up is another, and then um, a movie called Dead Presidents from the '90s. You notice all of these movies are older because they inspired me. But I always throw Scarface in there. But Goodfellas, Which Way Is Up, Dead Presidents, which Scarface? The Al Pacino Scarface. Yes. So those are kind of my favorites, I would say.
The 2 films that you mentioned earlier that you wrote were comedies. Do you have a favorite comedy movie?
Well, Which Way Is Up is a comedy, so I'll say that. But if I could give you another, um, let's see, what's another favorite comedies? Hmm. Trading Places. Eddie Murphy. Again, 1980s. All my movie references are going to be really old. Trading Places, definitely. Um, and Back to the Future. Back to the Future is a comedy. Definitely.
What are some things you try to incorporate in your films to like make it different from others?
Okay, something I try to incorporate to make it different than others. Um, One thing, when possible, is, and this is not different in everyone, everyone tries to do it in certain ways, but utilizing camera movement in certain ways, at certain times, establishing certain scenes with camera movement, long takes. I think I try to use, which is kind of a lost art, but a lot of old films you learn about in film history classes from like 1940s and 50s will utilize these long takes where if you're just running the camera for a minute and a half straight, that's boring. But to really capture long takes is how it moves and They move into this close up and come back out into this wide and follow this person across the room and stop there. And then that's an extreme close up and come back out. So that's another thing I try to incorporate. Also, a technique called deep focus photography, which is another old technique which you don't see as much. Whereas instead of everything being in focus, um, in the background, instead of the background being out of focus, where you see everything in focus, where it gives the audience choices. Like, so if this was a movie and the camera was right here in the foreground, they might see us, but then they also see him, and then they also see them in the back, all in focus. And it's like giving the audience choices of which one they want to look at, and then directing the person in the back to be doing something. That's another technique that a lot of people don't use. I try to do.
And is there like a new genre you want to try?
A new genre I would like to try. Um, I've often thought about trying to do science fiction eventually, but you know, I know, yeah, I don't want to always just stick to what I know I do well. So I'd say science fiction, but I know it has to be right. Um, I want to try something completely different and look foolish. So, but yeah, I would say science fiction.
So, has anyone like in your life ever influenced the way that you make film?
Someone in my life influenced the way I made films. So, um, I would say, well, I have to say, first of all, just my professors. I mean, obviously the ones who taught me. So when I went to study film, unlike a lot of my classmates, I had never played around with it. I had a camera, a camcorder, but I had never attempted it. It wasn't something I was interested in. So most of my classmates, they already were doing stuff in high school, or they were ahead of me by leaps and bounds when it came to that part of it. I just was a writer. I didn't care about that. So one particular professor named Roxy G was a tremendous influence, because I feel like in one summer, just like you all are here for the summer program, there were two classes, production one and production two, my first year of film school, that really caught me up. And I feel like by the end of that summer, I feel like I had caught up to everyone and surpassed some, just because I really locked in on what she had to say. She really had a harsh way of teaching. A lot of people were scared of her because she would really get on you or put your work on the board, and she was intimidating to a lot of people. But for me, it was just those fundamentals just stuck with me. I teach my students now the same way, not necessarily as intimidating as her, but the way I teach the fundamentals, the way I use those things are always in my mind. And the quickest way to take someone out of the illusion of your movie is to make a mistake, to make a really fundamental mistake. Then people start saying, "Oh, this ain't a real movie," whatever. So she was definitely a big influence. And I had a chance to teach with her when I returned to the University of Memphis, being a professor with her, because she's still there. So that was pretty cool.
So, how do you yourself balance like your own creativity with the technicality of filmmaking?
Great question. By having great people around me, um, the role of a cinematographer, DP, director of photography, is much different than a director. So cinematographers need to be much more technically inclined. There are those people, oh, this new camera's coming out in 2027, and they say it could be, and I'll be like, okay, like I don't really, that's not my interest, right? They're more the tech guys. So I definitely have to be on top of it enough to have that conversation with them, be able to communicate. But I would say just by being surrounded by people and having a cinematographer next to me, and really having someone who that's their wheelhouse. Anything needs to be hooked up, something goes wrong, how to, get this gimbal balanced, just all of those things, they're going to be really the ones doing that, and allow me the leeway to work with these actors, make sure the story is right, and really direct this. So I brush up and make sure I'm aware, but I would say definitely having the right people around, that really, again, going back to what I was saying earlier about knowing what your natural gifts are, having people around who that's their gift. That's what they really do.
how has racing influenced your career in filmmaking?
Okay, great question. It's influenced my career in filmmaking because racing is I don't like it's a cliche term to say chip on your shoulder. But growing up in Racine, it's always like, oh, they don't have this here, they don't have that here. It's a small city. You have to go somewhere else to do it. And I was just always determined, like, I'm from Racine, I could do it right here. And then even though I went away, it's like, well, I'm from here. I think it inspired me and motivated me to show um, as someone coming from here can do anything anyone else can do. And then also to be able to come back and share it and be able to come and do things and speak and hopefully inspire someone else and just show, that there's, life outside of here for those who feel like, hey, what am I going to do? Or I don't want to leave here. Or how can I survive somewhere else? So yeah, I think it gives you that motivation. And that's what it's given me as a filmmaker to say, I have to show and prove. Like, yeah, I'm from a small place that many of you never heard of, but watch what I can do.
Mm. So if I were to do what you're doing now, what steps would you give me to improve or get into what you're doing?
Okay, I would say to just work on definitely being disciplined and attention to detail because again, the reason a lot of films don't get finished that people start is just organization. They don't. A lot of people don't know how a film should be organized, and then they don't want to take the time to learn. So hey, if we pick up a camera and shoot, we're going to shoot this scene today. This will be a scene, and we'll do this tomorrow. And we'll do this, and it'll just kind of wing it. And yeah, we're going to take this summer and shoot a film. But for example, the film across State Street that we're about to shoot, um, I have it scheduled for 8 days, which is a tight schedule. But we're going to shoot for those 8 days, and unless something catastrophic happens, we're going to get it done in those 8 days. So I would say know how to structure it, because each day we're going to have a shot list. Make sure you have a shot list. Make sure you know what you want to accomplish that day. Um, know how to be flexible. Where if you're like, oh, we only have an hour left, but we need this amount of shots. Okay, combine these two shots. Change this so we can get rid of this one. But you always want to make the day, as they say. You don't want to be like, oh, we didn't get done. Oh, well, we'll try again tomorrow. No, I said 8 days. Each day, this is what's going to get done. And if that happens, then I know we have a movie, right? So that's the mentality you want to have is not taking it as, just being kind of willy-nilly and just, oh, well, we're going to do it over about a month and a half. No, not about a month and a half. How many days, being structured, being disciplined, really studying how to organize it, being able to delegate responsibility and have a few people to help you and sticking to your plan. So that'll separate you from others who don't have that mentality or don't really know how to do it that way. Is just being diligent and being disciplined.
Mm. Was it difficult coming to Africa, or was it like kind of easy because you had more experience?
I'd say a little bit of both. It was not nearly as difficult as people think it should be. And people thought I was crazy. Let me get that out of the way. You going to Africa to shoot a movie? Ah. Well, most people weren't laughing in my face. I found out later people were laughing behind my back or saying things. Nobody thought it was going to get done. But to me, it was like, if you get me to the set, it's the same thing that I'm doing here. Like it might sound, we have to get on the plane. There's other things to think about. So it really wasn't that hard as it should be because, like I just said in the last question, I was organized. I had a plan. I made sure things were in place and I stuck to my plan. And once you do that, it makes it a lot easier. So it really wasn't that difficult. A couple things were thrown in the path that made it a little difficult, but being organized and prepared allowed me to be flexible to fix those things.
Mm. In 10 years, where do you see yourself?
In 10 years, um, I say with a lot more films under my belt and hopefully based on what we're doing with Across State Street, this film in Racine having some semblance of an industry in Racine where we can say, oh, they come to Racine every year and they shoot movies, and this is going on, and people have opportunities. And even when he's not here, someone's shooting a movie because maybe young people like yourselves are around coming back and someone's directing, and maybe I'm executive producing from afar. Like, hey, I can't make it this summer, but you all do this and make sure this is done. So I just see myself continuing to teach because I love teaching. I love teaching what I love, which is film. So still teaching with probably 8, 9 more movies under my belt and or more. And yeah, having built up something at Racine that we could point to as an institution that can keep going.
How was growing up in Racine like in your time?
It was the fun. I've never had as much fun. I tell people I loved growing up Racine. I think it was like the best place in the world growing up. I mean, back then when it came to talent shows and whether it was the 4th of July carnival or Juneteenth Day or the events that we had, like talent show culture was big, you know. I mean, everyone wanted to be in talent shows and all that and the school dances and there was so much going on back then. So for me, the Racine I grew up in, which I will be capturing in some movies, I'm like, I have to make movies about that time, but it was a wonderful place. Just coming up to this center and just the things that we used to do. Yeah, I wouldn't trade growing up in Racine for anywhere. The Racine I grew up at.
Mm. So the importance of the Bryant Center and why is it so important now? Gee.
Uh, the Bryant Center, along with the other community centers in the city, were really the hub of these neighborhoods and the communities, and were really the place where we could go, you know, and just really belong. They were like the center of our social life. Like I say, 5:30 was really our time. We'd go home, we'd do different things in between, get our homework done, whatever we had to do. But we knew 5:30, we wanted to be in that gym. We wanted to be in here. We'd be in the game room shooting pool. I mean, you know, your social time, you know, boys and your girlfriend that you hope to be a girlfriend, and your girlfriend you hope to be your boyfriend, and all of these things, you know, were just going on. It was like this microcosm of the world for us, you know. The community center for that couple hours a day was like the world. You know, you could eat there, play basketball there, play pool, have fun, run around, and yeah, a great importance to us. So I'm really, really pleased to come and see programs like this still taking place in the Bryant Center and seeing people in the gym and hearing the children in the hallways and all of that. I love to see that because it's always been really important.
So, out of your films that you've made, which one do you think would be your favorite?
Ooh, that's a tough one. The one funeral arrangements, which is my first one, is hard to pick. Like I said, it's just like picking between your children. Probably a tie between funeral arrangements and coming to Africa, because they were my first of funeral arrangements was my first period. And coming to Africa was the first, I feel like on a certain level. You know, it's the first one on streaming platforms and really went worldwide and international. But funeral arrangements I have to give it to that one because the entire crew we were film students. We were all in film school together. The actors, a lot of them were theater students in the same building as us. And it was like all the young college students just about to graduate, or I was in grad school, but you know, with this dream, like, and I was the one with the script because I was the writer. So it's like, hey, you all want to do this? And it's like everyone got behind my project and it was everyone's first time doing a feature length film. We all had to do short films, but this was all of our first shots. So the enthusiasm we had, the excitement, I'd say that one. And then the story, a lot of people always come up to me now like, that's my favorite. That's your one, you know. So it wasn't my best technically, you know, it was my fit coming out of film school. I hadn't leveled up like I had, but it was good. So I'd say funeral arrangements.
And how do you think that your like experiences and your interests show in your work, in your films?
I would say my interests in the way I think and all that definitely show up in my films. because there's a certain consciousness to all my films, a certain social consciousness. There are certain things that I definitely believe strongly in. I believe in community. I believe in family. I believe in all of these things. So in my movies, even when it's a comedy, there's always going to be a message there. People always get that from me. And if anyone spends time around me, they get that. I'll end up going on a rant over something I saw online. I can't believe this is going on, and we need this, and people need that, and it comes out in my movies. Just basically that social consciousness, that always, wanting to help people and wanting people as a whole to be better.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I love the title Across State Street. I feel like that rings out if you like from Racine, because I feel like across State Street there's such a divide on like like a lot of people say like the culture from the south side and north side. And I was wondering how that correlates into the movie you're making.
I mean, you pretty much just nailed it. You explained it as if you saw the script. Growing up, those two worlds, it was always so separate. You say south side and north side. And I grew up on the south side over here. And it would always be like, well, I'll throw that caveat in. I grew up everywhere in different ways. But it would always, when I got older, like, I don't know you from, I went to horror. Like, oh, okay, that's why I don't know you. It would be that thing.
Yeah.
But when I was young in particular, so I grew up on the south side from a young age, but then we moved. It was a period where we moved a lot, and my grandmother lived on the north side. So my grandmother's house became the house that we always ended up at for about 6 months or something while we were in between houses. So I went from living on the south side, okay, we're going to live with grandma for a while. Oh, we got this house on 12th and Center right here in Midtown. Well, no, first 6th Street, right off 6th Street, right across from Jefferson. So then I was living there. Okay, we moved back to the north side for a minute. Okay, now we're living like at 12th and Center. Now we're back to the north side for a minute. So, and even going back to the community center. So I was spending time in Bryan Center, but then Bray Center.
Yep.
When I was there, and then King Center over there. And then what's that center right by Park? We used to
Tyler Donor Center.
Lafayette. Yeah, I don't know what they call it now, right? We used to say Lafayette.
Yeah.
Back in the day. But those are the four. So not a lot of people would had time spending time in each center, living in each neighborhood. But there is a real divide there when you cross State Street and how people looked at it. So I'm glad you said that. That was what I wanted the title to reflect. And I'm like, if you're from Racine, you would instantly kind of know and pick up on it. When you cross State Street, it could be a different world, from the schools to the stores people attend to where they go out. And I really thought I wanted a title that would kind of capture that. So I'm glad you feel like it did, but that really was the purpose of it. And that's a lot of what's going on in the film, but it's also to show that you have these characters on the south side, these characters on the north side who are really at odds, but their family structures and how you think what they're going through are really the same. Kind of like these parallel characters, but on different sides of town.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. This is like a Racine, but Boys in the Hood, but in the Racine kind of thing.
In a way.
Yeah.
All right.
That's so cool. Is there a place where we could see some of your work or portfolio, or even where the movies are going to go to? If there's a specific place that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. So for all general information, and you can see where things are, the website is bkefilms.net. B as in boy, bkefilms.net. My company is BKE Films. And as far as the movies that are out there now, I usually tell people everywhere except Netflix. I always like to tease because Netflix really started out leaning on the independents, and then they got so big, they kind of tried to leave us independents behind. But yeah, Coming to Africa and Coming to Africa, Welcome to Ghana are both on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Google Play, Tubi, Vudu, and a whole bunch of other places. So almost literally everywhere except Netflix. But you can always keep up if you go to BKE Films and see some of the behind the scenes, behind the scenes things, trailers, some of the interviews, some of the behind the scenes from when we shot in Ghana is amazing. Just kind of seeing the reply. The cast that I had over there were like all A-list over there. So it's like I get to go over there. So some of the behind the scenes is crazy. And you get to see some of the fans reacting to some of them. So it's like I get to come here and blend in and do my little work as a professor and filmmaker. And then I get to go over there and run around with celebrities and live, this African celebrity life. So that's cool. But yeah, check out the website, YouTube, also BKE Films, social media, a lot of things, just my name, Anwar Jamison, Anwar Jamison. So all of those places.
Cool.
Thank you.